Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a really profound teaching from the Bhagavad Gita. It's all about finding a path to joyful living, not by changing the world around you, but by completely changing how you see it. All right, let's get into it. So, here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about something I think we've all felt, that weird gap between what your head knows is true and what your heart actually feels. Then, we're going to dig into why that gap is even there. After that, we'll explore a pretty amazing technique for retraining how you perceive things, using powerful words straight from the Gita. And all of this, well, it leads to one incredible destination, a truly joyful way of living.
So, let's kick things off with a question that, really gets to the core of this whole thing. You get a concept intellectually, right? It makes sense, but your day-to-day emotional reality just doesn't match up. That exact feeling, that contradiction, that's our starting point.
And that feeling is exactly what this first section is about. We're calling it the knowing-feeling gap. It's this constant push and pull between what our brain understands and what our heart is actually experiencing.
Now, in the Gita, the source of this gap comes from a huge foundational teaching. Lord Krishna says that the universe was literally created out of himself. What does that mean? It means everything. Everything you see, hear, touch, every single person, every object, every experience is, at its core, divine. It's a simple idea, but it's massive. There is nothing but God.
And this, right here, just nails the problem perfectly. On the one hand, our intellect can get behind this idea, the world is God. Okay, got it. But on the other hand, our actual lived experience, what we feel, is totally different. We see the world as this endless parade of things we want and things we don't, things that make us happy and things that cause us pain. We're just stuck in the middle of that disconnect. So if the idea is that simple, why can't we just, flip a switch in our brain and feel this truth all the time? Well, as it turns out, there are some really, really deep habits that are getting in our way, and that's what we're going to look at now. The reason, in one word, is habit. The source material tells us we've spent our entire lives looking at the world through this filter of our own personal likes and dislikes. This deep attachment to what we want has kind of clouded our vision, you could say. It stops us from seeing the world for what it really is. And this is just a fantastic analogy for how our mind works. Think about it. A good friend from childhood changes her name. You know her new name. You've been told, it's in your phone, but what happens? Out of pure habit, almost like muscle memory, you keep calling her by her old name. That is exactly what's happening here. The old habit of seeing the world as a bunch of separate objects is so ingrained that it just steamrolls this new profound piece of knowledge. But here's the good news. The best thing about a habit is that it can be retrained. And that is precisely what Lord Krishna offers. A very practical exercise, a mental workout, designed to help us close that knowing-feeling gap by literally retraining our perception. The method is basically a kind of mental superimposition. Like when you keep misspelling a word, so you write it out correctly over and over again until it sticks? It's like that. First, you see the old habit for what it is. Second, you learn the new truth. God is the substance of everything. Third, and this is the real work, you practice over and over, consciously layering that new truth onto everything you see and experience. The whole point is to get your feelings in sync with what you know.
To really get our heads around this idea of superimposing a new truth, the source gives us another brilliant analogy. For a second, let's just think about gold jewelry.
Okay, so look at this. On the surface, what do we see? We see a bangle, a ring, and a necklace. They have different names, different forms, different functions. But if you ask the fundamental question, what are they? The answer for all of them is the same. They're gold. The forms are all different, but the substance, it's identical. And here is the crucial insight. The forms, the bangle, the ring, the necklace, they depend on the gold to even exist. But the gold itself, it doesn't depend on them at all. You could melt them all down and the forms would be gone, but the gold would still be there, unchanged. The objects in our world are the jewelry. God
is the goal.
So now we get to the very heart of the practice. Lord Krishna doesn't just give us the theory. He gives us the exact words to use for this mental exercise. And these are what we call the I am verses.
This is where the practice becomes so real and so personal. Just listen to these words. I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon. It's not poetry. It's an instruction. Next time you drink water, don't just drink it. Recognize the taste itself as divine. When you feel the sunlight, see the light itself as divine. It's a practice of consciously relabeling your entire sensory world.
And it just keeps going. It keeps expanding. I am the original fragrance of the earth, the heat and fire. Think about that. The smell of the soil after it rains, the warmth coming off a candle. And then this one. I am the life of all that lives. That animating spark, the very aliveness in every single living thing, that too is presented as a direct expression of this one source. And it goes beyond just the physical world. It moves into the abstract. The divine is the seed from which everything grows. It's the intelligence in an intelligent person, the power in a powerful person. It's even our strength and our desires, as long as they align with Dharma, which you can kind of think of as the universal law of right action and cosmic balance. It all points back to one single source.
And this verse just wraps it all up perfectly, bringing us right back to that gold analogy. All these things, the light, the heat, the intelligence, life itself, they're all like the jewelry. They depend on the divine source to even exist. But that source, just like the gold, is completely independent. It doesn't need any of those forms to be what it is.
So, after all this practice, all this mental retraining, what's the payoff? Where does this road actually lead? Let's talk about the ultimate goal, the true benefit of this whole thing. The destination has a simple name: joyful living. It is that state we've been aiming for, where that knowing-feeling gap finally disappears. It's when your emotions finally catch up with your intellect, and you don't just think the world is divine. You genuinely feel and experience it in everything, all the time.
And this is probably the most important thing to remember. Just knowing this stuff, just understanding the gold analogy intellectually, that's not what gets you there. That's not enough to get the benefit. The real transformation doesn't happen in your head. It happens in your heart, through consistent, dedicated practice. So I'll leave you with this to think about. This isn't just some ancient philosophy. It's a practical tool you can use literally right now. If everything is truly a manifestation of one divine substance, what's one ordinary thing? The taste of your tea, the sound of the wind, the simple ability you have to hear these words, what's one thing you'll choose to see as divine today?